Do you have an announcement, Matt? No. The tennis team or something? You want to say something?
Let me do it now.
Yeah.
So I'd like to congratulate the tennis team, Narragansett's tennis team, for their recent state title, and I was a part of that tennis team a few decades ago. We managed to win maybe one match in that era, so it's nice to see them do so well. So congratulations to the boys tennis team.
I'd also like, on a different note, to have a moment of silence for Martha Mulligan. She passed away on May 20th, mother of 4, wife of Robert Mulligan. She was a director of the Narragansett Little League and on the Parks and Rec board, and a Girl Scout leader. She was a tremendous asset to the community. I give a moment of silence in her memory. Thank you very much. Our first item tonight is the approval of the minutes for the April 14th, 2014 work session meeting.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Our first item tonight is a presentation on the comprehensive annual financial report for the year ending June 30th, 2013. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Pat Boucher from Bacon & Company. I'm going to give an overview. We met earlier and went over in detail the audited financial statements, but I'll give an overview again of the highlights. Page 1 through 3 of the report is our independent auditor's report. It is what is considered an unmodified opinion, which means the statements as presented are presented in conformance with generally accepted accounting principles. Previously, this was considered an unqualified opinion. Now it's considered unmodified. It's just a wording change. I'm going to highlight the various statements. Again, if you have any questions, just stop and ask me. Well, first of all, pages 4 through 13 is the management's discussion and analysis. This is information that's prepared by management, and we review it as part of the annual audit. Okay. Page 15 is the governmental activities. At the end of the year, the town governmental activities had a net position of, excuse me, $46,624,865. The business type activities had an ending net position of $39,247,476. Page 17 is the general fund. The total fund balance of the general fund at June 30th was $13,645,012, and the unassigned fund balance was approximately $4.2 million. The other column on that page is the non-major governmental funds, all the other town funds combined. So that's an overview of the main funds. Did you have any other questions, or? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next item tonight is a presentation by Kathleen Kelleher, Friends of Canachet Farm, and Thomas Fortier, Greenway Tree and Landscape Care, of signage for the Eastern Shore Lake Canachet, a small Rhode Island botanical garden. Welcome.
Yes. Today I would like to give you a very brief history of what this is all about. 8 years ago now, we started an educational program on the nature of Canachet Farm and the various environments there. And we've, for a long time, been very interested in educating the public by signage, and this is one of the first successes that we've had. At that time, Charlie Lee, who was vice president of the organization, had many great ideas and actually was extremely enthusiastic, one of the most enthusiastic of our members, was very interested in getting a consistent signage throughout the entire property. And we have spent a lot of time thinking about what kind of signage that would mean, educational, directional, etc. This is a sign that I sketched very, very briefly. Took me 15 seconds or so to sketch, and an artist has taken it and made it into a full piece of artwork. We're very proud of this sign. This is one of many signs that we will put, and thank you very much 1 year ago for giving us permission to do this. I wanted to say that within the month or so we will announce an unveiling of this sign, and it will be posted across from the South Beach Pavilion, where we've been doing our work to restore the native habitat. It's a sign which I hope that most of you will read between now and the 25 years or so in the future that it will survive, apparently, by the standards of the sign industry. So thank you very much for allowing us to do this, and we're very proud of it, and I hope that people have an opportunity to look at it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next item is a proclamation recognizing the South Gansett Girl Scouts bridging ceremony on June 6, 2014. Whereas Girl Scouting provides girls in kindergarten through 12th grade with a variety of opportunities that promote skill building, responsibility, leadership, and decision-making skills. And girls can join Girl Scouts at different grade levels: Daisy, Brownie, Junior, Cadet, Senior, and Ambassador. And approximately 200 girls from Narragansett and South Kingston are active Girl Scouts and eligible to bridge to the next level. And on June 6, 2014, a ceremony will be held to honor all of these girls and recognize their advancements. And these Girl Scouts, their adult leaders, and their families contribute greatly to the quality of our community through their character, leadership, and patriotism. Now, therefore, the Town Council of the Town of Narragansett does hereby congratulate all of the members of the South Gansett Girl Scouts of Rhode Island in recognition of their many achievements and urge our citizens to support Girl Scouts in their endeavors. Signed, this official seal, the Town of Narragansett, Washington County, State of Rhode Island, the 2nd day of June, 2014. Congratulations. And our next item tonight is the open forum. Please approach the podium and state your name and address. Mr. Vangermish.
I believe it was at the last meeting when we had a surprise affordable housing motion which was postponed. And it brought back to Glenna, myself, and if Sue Bush were here, Sue Bush, the horrible decision 3 or 4 years ago to grant $175,000 of taxpayer money to finish the project. I believe it was on 146 Boone Street, was on Boone Street. One of the greatest rip-offs in the history of mankind. And it is time that we demand a full public accounting of the cost of that project. Looking at all the funds that flowed in, including our $175,000, so that we can view this. And I would hope all of us could see the folly of what was done 3 years ago, that we will never commit this folly again of giving our hard-earned taxpayers' money to something that never should have been. So I really demand this. We put the money in. We are entitled to a full accounting. And by that I mean funds in and funds out. And I would have loved to have seen where the money went on this project, which was 3 or 4 times more costly than a similar project in the same time period.
Thank you. Mr. Alba.
about 24 Eagles Nest Terrace. First of all, I want to make a note that the sign that directs us to Town Hall has been down for about a week now or better. So I think we should get that put up. And also, at the last meeting, I noticed we had some people here that would try to fight, not fight, but to be for the unions, and they let the guy speak a lot longer than the 3 minutes that we usually get. So to me, I mean, we don't hire those people. We hire you people, and you're the ones that should be able to tell us what to do and what not to do, not the unions. Unions, they don't do good for the town, or anybody really. I know I worked at Levington, and the unions came in there, and now Levington is no longer in their state. And this used to be the Jewish center of the whole world, right here in little old Rhode Island. But no more. So that unions aren't good. We don't hire them, and I was surprised you let them speak more than 3 minutes. So that shouldn't be allowed. If we can't speak more than 3 minutes, they shouldn't be allowed to speak more than 3 minutes. So I know Wojciechowski was telling me how that you know, you try to buck the unions, and he knows of someone that got killed because, you know, they're mostly run by gangsters. Well, I'm an American, and I'm a tough Sicilian. We don't scare easily. So we hire you people, not the unions, to run the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wojciechowski.
Stan Wojciechowski, Narragansett. I just wanted to go over what I call is Landlord 101, because landlords are taking a hit, so I want to just give you an idea what landlords do once in a while. We had this mother come over to us, and she begged us to rent to her daughters for the summer. We had a year-round rental. She wanted it for the summer, and she begged to do it. And she had a business in town. She came in a nice car, nice clothes. The daughters come from Boston, a fantastic college out in Boston. And then the final evaluation was the daughter's father was one of the top state police officers in Rhode Island. In fact, he was written up in the paper, because I asked about that. I saw that name in the paper. So here we have a really qualified tenant. So therefore, I said, okay, we're gonna let you in there for we'll let you in there for the summer. We won't hold you for a year or anything like that. Well, the first weekend, they were partying till 4 o'clock in the morning, okay? And they said it lasted really 4 days. And by the time I heard about it, I told the next door people, I said, why didn't you call the police? Why didn't you call? Well, we assume we tell you. Obviously, you're sending a message out that the landlord is going to fix this thing. You know, they're partying 3 or 4 days, and it happened a few more weekends. So you have a very reputable people from a landlord's point of view. So it's obvious that we have an enforcement problem. Obviously, if I can't trust our opinion on somebody so qualified, then I have to go back to enforcement. Enforcement has to be where we're going to fall on. And that's why I've always suggested that the police need to be involved rather than a landlord. However, I can see that since our decision makes not good, I guess I might have to go into the enforcement phase, huh? So that means I got to go out there when you have a party. I got to go there, and if I have to go there, I've heard from a lot of old people, hey, they're afraid of these people when they go there to these drunks, okay? And I've been to drunks more than once, so I think I'm going to have a weapons permit when I do that. So now you're going to give weapons permits to all the landlords so they can go to the parties and stop the parties. Okay? Now, I'm only familiar with 45s. I had that in the Army. I don't want to use 38s. police, I think use 38s, I don't know. I only use 45, and I really don't want to get into this enforcement phase, but obviously this is what you, the town council, is promoting. The landlord will help solve this problem. I will help it. I'll fix it. I'd rather not carry a weapon, but if I have to do that, let me know. Let me know if that's what the landlords have to do. Is that, because that's, I didn't know that we were going to be an arm of the police. And that's what, right now, this is what it appears to be. We're an arm
Time's
of
up,
the
Mr.
police.
Wojciechowski.
And I know I need some more training on that, and I'll do the best I can. My wife doesn't want me to have a weapon. We have never had a weapon.
Neither do we.
But, if we have to, let me know if that's what I got to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Brady.
I'd like to talk a minute or two about two items that have come before the council in the last month, and they're basically, I think, what I would call two windfalls for the town. I know that the council has tried hard to address the pension underfunding situation in the town. I know you've come up with a 25-year plan. I know you're working very hard at it. But the school department, you had a work session with them a couple weeks, maybe a month ago, and they raised the issue that they had $700,000 in reserve. They had roughly $350,000 that they wanted to pay for their part of the pension debt. But the other $350,000 they wanted to keep, and they wanted the council to pay the school committee, and then the school committee addressed that issue. I didn't think that was right at the time, so I'll leave that in abeyance for a moment. Now, the school committee also proposes a $3.2 million athletic complex, with the taxpayers paying $1.8 million through bonds, community gifts of $0.7 million. The school department proposes and says it has $640,000 that it's going to put towards this athletic complex. So I assume that is earmarked for that project. And grants, they propose, according to the brochure, of $64,000 that they think they will get. Well, this month, fortunately, the town got $400,000 grant from the state for that athletic complex, the way I understand it. So there is no need for the town council to give them $350,000 to pay their debts to the state for the pension plan. And I'm requesting that the council withdraw that and put it towards the town municipal side of the debt ledger for the pension plan. The second item, and a windfall that you got, was $500,000 plus or minus in a settlement for Salt Pond Shopping Center. That again is a windfall. This is not planned in the budget, though I understand it. And that should go directly into paying off a portion of the pension funding. This will give us a head start for the next 5 or 6 years. That's almost $1 million plus that we can put into it. If we cannot put it into this year, at least earmark it, that it cannot be touched for future projects. And I see them happen, staff, a new council comes in and they come in here to this council and they will bleed that $500,000 in an instant. Anyway, I'm asking the council to reconsider that roughly $850,000 and put it towards additional payment towards our pension funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Shevchelowitz.
Emily Post used to say to wait 24 hours before sending out an angry letter. I waited more than a month after the May 5th Narragansett Town Council meeting, where a town council member was allowed to personally slander and attack me and say he didn't want to hear from me anymore. And another citizen who's related to a town council member slandered me and defamed my character, and it wasn't even on the agenda. I asked Mr. Callahan for an apology. I'm feeling very strongly that Robert's Rules of Order were not followed appropriately. I am not a public official. I did not personalize it and make it a personal attack, as some other people did. I called the Attorney General's office and spoke to an attorney there. He says it's not their job to enforce Robert's Rules of Order, but I'm free to hire an attorney. I called the governor's office, the Secretary of State's office. Almost everyone I spoke to said that it reflected on the town what went on in that meeting. I also brought it over to the Women's Resource Center. It's on YouTube. If you want change, you must be that change. And I think I, for one, as a citizen of this town, was horribly, horribly upset by what happened at that meeting. I think this is the idea of a democracy, that you can come forward and say what's on your mind. And I always try to use the guidelines of not a personal attack. But I guess Pandora's box has been opened. And I would like to call for a reorganization of the town personnel committee, because one of the people on that committee was chairman of the school committee when I had terrible problems and my family had terrible problems in special ed. And the Office of Civil Rights, the U.S. Department of Ed, came in and found a climate of intimidation, retaliation, and coercion in the school department. I would call for the Department of Justice to come into this town and see the incestuous playing of how people are hired, who they're related to, and also the protection of the all-important pensions. It seems that everybody on the committee has a relative that is, or they themselves are receiving a pension.
Ms. Abshelowitz, your time is up. Thank you. Mr. Kegels.
Ray Kegels, Narragansett. I noticed that some of you were smiling when Stanley was speaking. The issue he brought up was near and dear to my heart. I am a landlord in town. I rent to summer tourists. And I found myself and my family caught up in this, what's gone on between the students and the town, not that I'm actively involved or have a problem that way, but that I'm defined as part of that group of so-called landlords, most of whom don't cause any problem, and yet who are often demonized and certainly taxed by the town, and I think unfairly. When these fees were first imposed, our family liability was $120 a year. During the, with the first change, it went to $240. With the second change, it went to $300. Now there's a proposal to put it up to $600. I haven't seen any particular effect that raising this special money from certain citizens and perhaps non-citizens, well, definitely non-citizens, has had on the problem. It's not the way to solve social problems. I do have ideas on how perhaps those social problems can be addressed better than what we're doing now. I'm not going to try to bring it up right now. I understand you're ready to pass some changes in fees. But I think, I believe what I read in the paper anyway was the increase in fees to landlords has been postponed. I also have comments on the cost recovery ordinance, which I think is terribly unfair, if not illegal. I don't know whether it's legal or it's not legal, but it's terribly unfair to landlords in that it's the only ordinance I know of in the town that imposes absolute liability with no defense for a landlord saying they simply didn't do anything wrong. Fines are imposed because of that ordinance. Now, whether it's been used or not, I don't know. But I think my main message is here. It's time to stop demonizing landlords just because they have that name. I was told when those prior ordinances passed that they weren't really targeting me and the kind of people who rent to, year-round tenants or summer residents, tourists, and so forth. They were really aimed at the students. But I think the problem is the way you categorize people. And if it's fair in your minds to categorize all landlords, because you can't discriminate against one or a different landlord, perhaps you could have a category of all students, just tax all students, or have them pay fees up front.
Your time's up, Mr. Kagels.
I'm sorry, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
My name is Robert Lovegreen. I live at 20 Diane Road. I'd like to bring you some good news. About a year ago, the Bonnet Shores Terrace Association, of which I am a member, had a problem with its entranceway onto the Bonnet Shores Beach. There was a town drain at the location that was clogged, and the water was overflowing onto the town property and onto our property, so that people had to walk through water and mud to get to the right-of-way. These included elderly people, some disabled people, young mothers trying to push baby carriages and strollers. We brought it to the attention of the Department of Public Works, and we were told that something would be done, but it never was. In December, we brought it to the attention of our town manager, who immediately gave us a meeting. We presented our issue to her, and she indicated that it would be taken care of. In December, after that meeting, there was a little bit of work done, but the weather turned bad, so we had to wait until the spring. In the spring, the DPW did nothing, even though we emailed them several times. It wasn't until very recently that we emailed Ms. Nolan, and she's a breath of fresh air, quite frankly. She took the problem under control. The work has been done. It's been done beautifully. We have a beautiful entrance now to our right-of-way with no water problems. It's all been dug out. So I'd like to tell you that you made an excellent choice, and Ms. Nolan and her department is working beautifully. Secondly, I'd like to also tell you that from time to time I've had occasion to go to the town clerk's office for information, documents, advice, etc. On every occasion, I have been met with very courteous, informative staff. Without exception, they are superb. They've always given me a great deal of help. And I would like to also tell you that you have an excellent town clerk's department. I'm not saying there aren't more in town, but certainly those two, from my experience, are doing a great job. So thank both of you.
Thank you very much. Move on to the consent agenda. Anyone have any items to remove? Motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to number 7, old business. A motion to reconsider the vote taken on April 7th, 2014 at the public hearing on Bonnet Shores Beach Club Association's request to amend the Class D liquor license to allow entertainment for Fridays until 11:30 p.m. from May to September, which failed to pass. Before we actually make the motion, Mr. McSally, this was a public hearing, correct?
Pardon me?
Was this a public hearing? It was not? It was
This
just
was a
motion?
public hearing. I was not here that evening, but it was a public hearing on a request to modify restrictions on an alcoholic beverage license.
So at this point, we can just reissue the motion and not go through the public hearing again?
Right. There's a case in Rhode Island that goes back a number of years, and we've relied upon it, as do other municipalities, that stands for the proposition that in a zoning situation, which that was a public hearing as well, so it's translatable, that that zoning hearing took place. Town council denied it in Smithfield. It was then 3 months later brought back under the same rules you operate under, Robert's Rules of Order, by a motion to reconsider. The motion was made by somebody in the prevailing party in the first vote. That motion passed. The council then took up the matter again, voted to approve the zone change, and that was affirmed by the Superior Court and the Supreme Court. So what's before you tonight it's very similar to what we've done last meeting on a vote for a bond, or bid, excuse me. It's a motion to reconsider. If somebody in the majority part, whoever was in the majority makes that motion, it gets seconded and passed. The item is now open for discussion, debate again, and you can vote the same way you did before, or you can change your vote. You don't need to have a public hearing. You could do so if you choose, but you don't need to have a public hearing. It's just reconsidering the vote you took before.
So I'll move that motion.
I think,
Oh.
I think,
Do I need to move it?
I
Yeah,
think so.
because I was a dissenting, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll second it.
Okay, so I actually,
discussion?
yeah, I actually put the motion on for reconsidering. I was approached after the last meeting by a number of people asking questions about the basis for why I'd voted the way that I did. And, you know, in hindsight, fully realizing that Mark wasn't here, there's a lot of history behind this issue. And Bob tried as much as he could, Mark, but you didn't have the historical knowledge, I think, around the matter. And so without that, and then the way the proponent had sort of advocated for the request, didn't feel like, it felt like there was something missing for me. And then when the public spoke, it felt like conflicting stories. And so there was, in hindsight, the merits, I didn't ever really consider the merits of actually the request, to be quite honest. We didn't have a full council that night. The motion failed on a 2-2. And so I wanted to bring it back largely to make sure that we had a full council, that we had all the information we needed to act on, and that was really just the basis for the reconsideration.
Mr. President?
Mr. McLaughlin?
The night during the testimony, I don't know if we should be talking about this now or later, but during the testimony, the applicants didn't talk about an agreement that they had with the original party I guess it was 10 years before, as I remember it. And that testimony came out from one of the residents that brought the action against the Bonnet Shores Beach Club. And it was near the end of the conversation. And it was an agreement they had in there, and apparently it was very simple for me. They apparently tried to change an agreement that they had 10 years ago. And that's why I didn't have a problem with that. I didn't see any other reason to grant it.
So could I just ask Mark something?
And the other thing I don't understand is how did it get back here again? Refresh my memory on the vote again as to how.
2-2 failed.
It was a 2-2, so the
It was
motion.
2-2, so it failed.
So somebody that was against it as a prevailing party, that person, Glenna in this case, can put it back on for reconsideration for the
So it
council.
was you and I, Glenna, that
Yeah.
voted against it?
Correct.
So Mark, can I just ask you a question?
Should remember those things.
It was just to lift the restriction for Friday night entertainment from May to September till 11:30 for the club on Friday nights, correct?
That's what
That was the only restriction.
It was consideration of granting them the ability to, right? And I think
To lift the restriction so they could do that,
There's a
right?
prohibition that they wanted
Yeah.
permission for, I guess is what
Correct.
the.
Yep,
Okay.
that's what it was, just for the,
Yeah.
and the testimony was they had weddings and stuff like that they
That's
were
right.
unable to book because they didn't have any music on a Friday night.
Right, but you're right. I shut down after it became apparent that kind of 2 stories, and we really didn't ever have kind of the independent view of, and so I sort of stopped listening. And in full disclosure, I couldn't navigate couldn't reconcile the 2 separate accounting. So felt like I just needed to bring it back because there were a lot of folks asking sort of, it's not a good answer for making a decision.
Not having sat through it, I don't know what the exact issues were. I did speak to one representative of the Beach Club today, so I've got a quick overview as to what happened at DBR, didn't happen at DBR. I know Judge Lovegreen's here, and I believe he testified in the public hearing last time about So I did not go back and dust off the file. I mean, but your issue right now is if you vote to reopen the matter, you can then decide what do you want to do with it. If you're going to gather more information or want me to review something, that won't happen tonight because simply I haven't seen it or know what the thinking of the council is. If you wanted to have more evidence taken, you'd probably be best served to reopen the public hearing itself as opposed to just reconsidering your vote. So you got some options depending upon how you want to handle it, and I'm not and what you want to get for information.
No, I just didn't think we gave it a fair shake last time. Or I didn't anyway. I can only speak for myself.
So the motion right now is to reconsider the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
Nay.
opposed? 4-1, the motion carries.
Mr. President,
Mr. McLaughlin?
I have a question for Councilman Mannix. Should you be voting on this matter?
I don't think there's any benefit that I'm going to accrue, whether there's Friday night entertainment at the beach club, regardless of my membership. I'm not a member of the board.
You're a property owner there.
Right, I'm not a member of the board, and I don't receive any benefit. There's no benefit that I receive if this goes through or not. So, just like when the taxes were challenged, if you remember, I recused myself on that because it clearly would have been a benefit for me.
Number 8 is a motion to approve the request from Bonnet Shores Beach Club Association and allow entertainment on Friday evenings from May 1st to September 30th until 11:30 p.m.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion.
So now you can discuss what you want to do, if anything. If you want to vote on it again, you want to have more evidence, you want me to do something, you want to hear from the public, you got to decide on this action what you want to do and how you want to come to a conclusion. Reaffirm what you did before, gather more evidence and information, in which case you probably want to reopen a public hearing, which means advertising it, or simply vote on what you have before from your recollection of the hearing that took place in May.
I'd like to vote on the motion.
Mr. President?
Mr. McLaughlin?
I've already listened to the testimony from both sides, and I thought it was very clear and very simple. They want to have entertainment there on Friday nights, so they can entertain weddings. I don't know if it's every Friday night or just for weddings. That wasn't clear, but that's the point. And this was, there was a challenge to that, and it went to the Department of Business Regulations, I think, and at some time they made a deal with the complainant in the hallway as that they would, if they got certain other things, that they wouldn't have the entertainment there on Friday night. And I don't see any reason to change that. The facts of that case are still in place today, same as they were 10 years ago. I don't think they changed, and I don't think we really need to change anything there.
So that's I think that's the piece that's missing for me is sort of why did it end up at DBR? What was in place before? What was in debate? And what was the hallway deal? And what's, why did that get made? And I don't know, Mark, if you have.
So perhaps we should ask the manager of the beach club to come forward
Oh,
because
is
he
he
wasn't
here?
able to share that.
I didn't
Yeah.
realize that.
And actually, this is where we kind of walk a fine line. Let's scroll back. Let's scroll back to May 5.
Well, people can comment on the motion, though.
Comment on the motion, but here's the issue. Typically you hold a public hearing, you close the public hearing, the evidence is in before you. You may have a couple of questions of staff at the time you're holding a vote. Typically, the public doesn't get to comment on your vote on the merits of what was a public hearing before you. And I suspect, hearing Glenna, your recollection of the hearing, speaking briefly to one of the board of directors today, I understand there's an issue as to what took place at DBR. They have a transcript and a file I've not gone to retrieve. That's more evidence coming before you that was not in the public hearing. I'm not sure you can really do that. I'm more comfortable with if you want to reopen a public hearing to receive more evidence on the status of what took place at DBR, so you can ask more questions about it, come to a conclusion, and then vote on it. that's probably better. If you're simply going to just, debate amongst yourselves and have a vote without any new evidence, that's fine too. So I've got to watch where you go with the additional
No.
input and documentary
I can
evidence.
understand that, but you did say, so you spoke to DBR, and without necessarily seeing the transcript, do you have sort of the Reader's Digest version of?
I spoke to the beach clubs, representative
okay.
from the beach club, and they have a copy of it. I didn't get a chance to catch up tonight and pick it up, but there is a copy, supposedly the transcript around, which somewhat jogged my memory in terms of there was a denial at this level by the town council. There was an appeal taken by the liquor license holder, which went to DBR.
Do you remember what the denial was based on?
It was, I don't without pulling the
Okay.
file out.
Yep.
There was a meeting at DBR, or hearing scheduled. There was then a consent agreement entered to allow certain entertainment. How it came about exactly, I was up there. I'd have to go back and search my records. It did involve the town, did involve some consent by the abutting property owners or plat owners that were concerned about the issue. I don't believe that was binding and barring any further amendments or changes to it later on, but I have to go back and look at the transcript to actually verify that in the order itself.
So I'd be curious to that, right? Because if there's an agreement in place with certain mandates, qualifiers, precluding any amendments, et cetera, we'd want to know that. And so I would suggest, I don't necessarily think we need a new public hearing, but we could continue the matter, I think, until you could get your hands, Mark, on maybe copy
But
of
we
some
would
of
have
your-
scheduled a new public hearing. I thought like that would have been the process, right, Mark? We would have scheduled.
You can
Because
decide.
we could have just done that and renoticed it. And
Well, then you'd have an administrative finality issue because basically you'd voted no, and then they're not coming in with the same. If
I mean,
they-
even Doug said there were things that were not clear. I think we can have people talk on the motion, the merits of our motion. We have people speak on motions throughout. I mean, as long as it's not new evidence.
To me, it sounds like, well, let's look at it this way. If you're going to have people come up and explain what it is and, give you documentary evidence or testify about it, that's, to me, more evidence coming before you. If you want to ask staff, which includes myself, to provide you with a report on, based upon the transcript and based upon the conflicting statements as to what the effect of DBR's decision was, I'm happy to do that. I think that's okay. It's when you go out to the public and say, I want more testimony, I want more evidence, that troubles me in terms of a process and in terms of whether you actually have to re-advertise it, matter or not. So it's all what you want to do and how you want to handle it.
Again, for me, it was about, I would like to understand the nature of the agreement, what the, restrictions are on modifying it, if any, and then, the merits on their own. Again, it didn't trouble me so much as sort of the inconsistency in the story, and I would prefer to have an independent view on truly how do we interpret what's in place and how it came about to make a decision about how to go forward. That's all I really need. I don't know about anybody else. James, you weren't here, so I don't know if you need anything else because you didn't hear the testimony, but you could read the
Right. I can
transcript.
be happy to read the information, Mr. McSally, and then make a vote next meeting.
Yeah, I think probably best to be defer this 2 weeks. If you want to direct me to take a look at the DBR record to provide you with some insight in terms of what I recall and what my file reflects, that may give you enough information without going back out for more testimony to then make a determination as to whether you want to change your prior vote. And James, if the case law does permit you to participate, if you review the record of the hearing that you missed, and then you can vote on it.
I'm happy to do that.
So we just continue this is it 2 weeks next meeting, 2 weeks to the next
Just as
meeting?
long as we're not going to be hearing any testimony from the public
That's
on
not,
it.
yeah, but the
Because
plan
if we're
is
going to
just-
do that, we need to reopen the public
Yeah,
hearing.
absolutely, I agree with you, Doug.
Pardon me?
I agree with you, Doug. That's,
So I'm going to make a motion to continue to next meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Next meeting. Number 9, a motion to adopt an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 46 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled Miscellaneous Offenses.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion.
This is our second reading, right? So I just have a comment on it. I think that these increased fines that are going to be going into municipal court, that we want to have a mechanism where we can track them so that we can then use that increased money that we get from the difference between the 100 to the 500 for each of these for police details. It's not something I want to incorporate into the ordinance, but it's something that I'd like to dovetail on what we've been saying all along about increasing the details, whether state or town, in areas that need the help. So I just want that comment kind of out there. That's what we should, that's kind of one of the purposes of this. It's not just to penalize the wrongdoers, it's also to help us on the other front, so.
And so I wanted to make a comment as well. For the increased fines that we were discussing prior to the URI issue, Nancy Devaney had asked me, Danuccio had asked me to set up a meeting about increasing the fine. So a credit to her because she brought it to the town council. And in that meeting we talked about allocation of money. What would we like the council to look at? And one of the things she had asked was for preventative. She had talked about enforcement, and she had talked about an allocation of money to be used as preventative. And I don't really know how the percentages are going to work, but to Matt's point, I think you have to be a little clear on how that money is going to be used, not just generally sitting there, what are we going to do with it? So I just think that, that's an important piece, the preventative as well as the enforcement. So I'm not the expert on that, but I'd certainly like to consider that due to Nancy being so diligent about her work and bringing it to our attention. So I thank you for that, Nancy.
Ms. Danuccio?
Thank you for the right name there. So this is something that we have talked about for a long time, and I was really very pleased having that meeting. We met with the town manager and the police chief and discussed the ramifications of raising the fines and what that would look like. And as I said originally, I am looking for some of that funding. The Narragansett Prevention Partnership is functioning on a very low budget allocation from the state this last year, and looks like it's going to be upcoming the same. And this would help us to be able to provide some strategies to address a lot of the perpetrators of the alcohol infractions. Right now, with the small amount of money that we get, most of our efforts are at the middle school and the high school, and there's really not enough funding to look at the off-campus housing issues that arise from having the kids from URI live in Narragansett. And if we had some additional funding, that might be something that we could look at. There's a lot of different strategies that we could put into place. And I agree that some of that does need to go into enforcement as well. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I thought you were, but I didn't, you were standing still up there, so I said, oh, maybe she's not. Thanks, Nancy. One of the things that struck me last time when we were talking about the fines, or a couple of conversations that we've had about this was, we were talking about the notion of these fines and how they, when some weren't collected, did we actually chase after people, et cetera. And then I can't recall who asked for it, but somebody requested an accounting of how many fines were assessed and didn't actually get paid. And funny enough, they all get paid, right? And so the fines themselves don't appear in my mind to be a deterrent to the behavior. And so it actually led me to the question, why do we send these people to municipal court? Why don't we have them just arrested, go to district court, and get a record forever? Like that, the money piece, these kids don't seem to have a problem paying. Why aren't we sending them to court and getting, really putting a black mark on their record?
Because most of these don't qualify as misdemeanor offenses that would be in the district court, except for disorderly.
Disturbing the peace?
It's a municipal order. If we had to go with the disturbing under the state law.
There are statutory, I would think,
there are,
alignment with all of these.
That's number one, but number two, the district court, this is why we created a municipal court. It has little tolerance for municipal cases on parking, on urinating in public,
Yeah,
process.
and maybe I'm not talking about all of them, Mark, so with your, in fairness, that's a fair point. I'm thinking about the ones that, you know, are the more egregious, where we've got, you know, the situation that we had down in Eastward Look, and we continue to have, like on the weekends, the house parties where we've got the noise, you know, complaints, the repeated disturbing of the peace, those type of things where it's unequivocal that these kids could be arrested, could be, have an example set. I'm just wondering, I
I
mean.
defer to the chief, but I'm not sure that they all would fit the misdemeanor definitions, and they may be disorderly, yes, but there's a distinction between our disorderly versus the state disorderly. The others, noise, no. The sticker, no. I'm not sure what else, but I'd defer to Dean on that.
If there are state police details, though, down there, and Dean can answer this when he comes up, then they could bring students in on some misdemeanor, statutory misdemeanors, right?
If a state trooper makes the arrest, they can choose where they're going to prosecute. Most likely it would be district court.
And I don't want to put you on the hook, Dean, because it's not about really you so much as how we choose as a town from a policy perspective to enforce these, right? And so appreciate your insight, but this isn't a criticism. It's just a question of why do we rest on, especially unlawful possession or, you know, underage or open container. I mean, all those things you could easily go to the state.
And those are violations. Those are non-custodial. We can't take them into custody for possession for violations. One of the reasons why we went to using the municipal court more frequently was that we were really using a statute for disorderly conduct for loud parties that didn't exist. It's a stretch with what we did to charge folks with having a loud party when they may not have been disturbing the peace themselves. We charged the renters, not necessarily those that we could hear yelling. There was the enactment of the social host in Narragansett, which has more teeth to it than what the state statute had at the time. The town elected to go to mirror some of the violations or misdemeanors that the state had on a town level so that the town had control of it. The district court looks at a lot of these things far less stringently than maybe the municipal court judge does, because it's removed from a district court judge. It's one person on a docket of maybe 100 for arraignment or pre-arraignment that's going to go before them. So it really loses something on a district court judge, where the town, I think, has a little more influence as to what that judge can do as far as a penalty. The added benefit also is the fines go to the town rather than to the district court. But
My only point was it doesn't appear to be, I mean, if we're collecting them, the kids write the checks. I mean, it just doesn't feel like a deterrent.
Well, I know I've said it before, that enforcement is not the ultimate answer to any of these issues we have in Eastwood Look. It's not. It's a piece. If the fines are raised, it may be more of a deterrent, or may have more of a deterring effect upon the students. When they're not paying $200, they're now paying $500. I don't know. That's yet to be seen. You know, there's a lot of keys, a lot of pieces to this puzzle to try to work on. I think that the pay-by-mail system or the appearance in front of a municipal court judge probably has as much impact on a student. If they're not going to be too concerned about paying the town a fine, they're not going to be very concerned about paying a district court judge a fine.
Well, and that's why I asked the question last time, before I even thought about the district court piece. Why don't we just haul them all in here rather than doing the pay? You know, that's how this whole stream of thought started, was why don't we just parade them all through? They have to stand here and face the judge rather than assess the fine.
Another option, and Mark would have to correct me on this, is that if you make any of the fines not payable by mail, that they all have to appear. I mean, that's an option. That there are no pay-by-mails. Every student or everybody charged under these ordinances must appear, be given a court date, and appear at the municipal court. Now,
right,
there's the ramification
I get
of that
it.
with how we process these people through municipal court. Right. Oh, know if I answered your question. or
Yeah,
not,
no,
but
I mean, sort of. Again, it's not a criticism, it's a question about, there's lots of options, to your point, and no one, there's no one magic bullet, but it just feels like the money doesn't seem like, for most of these kids, it's going to be a deterrent, and if we're really, truly looking for a deterrent, when a kid goes to get his first job and they've got a record, granted a misdemeanor, it just doesn't follow them around. There's no consequences to the behavior.
What really follows them around more even than a criminal record, because most of the time they're being filed for good behavior for a year, or immediately upon paying the fine, they're getting them expunged, so they disappear anyway from the court system. There's no record. What follows them is a newspaper report and their name showing on Google. So when you Google someone for employment, that's when they're actually being found. And I think I told you that we had a young girl send me an email 2 years ago, was arrested for drunk driving, possession of prescription narcotics, and now that she's getting ready to graduate, it's a very difficult job world out there, and could I please help her getting that article removed from the patch? So that's when it comes back. It's not going to show up. If they have an application that says, have you ever been arrested or convicted? Then the true answer is yes. However, if they've had it expunged or it's been in a municipal court level and filed after a year, it's gone. But that's what follows them, is the Google search or the Facebook, social media, more than anything.
Thanks.
I still think increasing them to the max hurts them, I do. I mean, I would
And
still
this
support
discussion
that.
is for like another, I didn't want to open a Pandora. I just wanted to get it out there that the fines are going to increase. What should we do with that money, and whether it's prevention or increased details? It's only a second reading. We're not changing anything substantively. I just wanted that concept.
Sorry for
and
the
maybe it's a
detour.
separate, no, it's good, but I think it could be a separate item so that, to help, I don't think we're going to solve that part tonight, but.
Well, I was going to say that I don't like the idea at all of taking that fine money and dedicating it to a police overtime budget or Nancy's programs either. If the municipal judge wanted as a condition of their fine or whatever to contribute it to their fund, if you set it up this way, something like the Victims Indemnity Fund, if it was run something like that, that's fine. But I don't like to see fines issued by the police going back to the police. I don't like that concept at all. I think
it's not going back to the police. It's going back to enforcing what's going on in that area.
It's going back to enforcement and overtime.
It might be going to state or URI or
Did you
South
say
Kingston
overtime?
Police. It might be. We talked about going to. We could pick other police forces.
I think you guys are talking about two different things.
Well, okay. Maybe this isn't the time to talk about it, but I just want you to know what my position is on that. That I don't think it's a good idea to take fines. And
So what do you want to do with them? The
Pardon me?
fines. What do you want to do with the?
what do you
increased
do with the
fines?
fines that we have
Just
now?
put them in the general fund.
What do we do with the fines we do now?
Just put 'em in the
Same-
general
yeah,
fund.
Absolutely.
Right. So then, and then we don't solve the problem.
Solve
That's
what
my concern.
problem?
The problem of partying in Eastwood Look that we're trying to address. That's
Well,
what,
there's a whole
that's what
lot
we're
of
trying to
things
fix.
in this equation. It isn't to solve those problems, and it isn't just fines. There's several things that need to be put together to fix that problem in Eastwood Look.
So we're trying to move
Yeah,
forward.
so the
and do that.
motion tonight, though, is just to see if we want to increase them, not what we're going to do with the allocation of money. So let's stick to the motion on the floor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
4-1, the motion carries. And we can discuss other methods and other ideas some other time. Number 10, a motion to adopt an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 74 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled Traffic and Vehicles, and a motion to adopt a resolution amending the official list of parking restrictions and regulations in the Town of Narragansett in accordance with the Narragansett Code of Ordinances.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Shebchelowitz.
Excuse me, please. I'm not sure if you're on the page of 46-14, violations and fines. I had two questions about sweeping in public places. Does that include like sleeping on the beach? Should that be clarified, like sleeping overnight or something like that? It seems rather vague.
We're on chapter 70, we're on number 10, chapter 74 now. But I don't think it applies to sleeping on the beach, no.
I'm on CC 9, ordinance fine amendment.
We just heard that motion.
Yeah. Is that what you just heard?
That's what we just voted on.
So does the sleeping in public places mean if you fall asleep on the beach, you can be fined? I mean, I'm just not trying to be facetious. I just think that ought to be clarified. And also pub crawls, $100. Is that like if you go on a bus and they bring you someplace? What does that mean? Or is that for the bus driver? Or what is that for? It seems like if it's a whole bus, $100 doesn't really do anything, and I don't know the laws about what that includes, but somebody at the South Kingston Senior Center who lives in Narragansett told me that right at the end of April or beginning of May, there were school buses that dropped off URI students. She didn't know which school buses there were at Charlie O's. And I didn't know, I hadn't heard no mention of that, about buses bringing in students. Is that illegal? Is that what a pub crawl refers to, an $100 fine? It just...
We're not on that motion anymore, Mr.
You're already on it?
We're already past it. Discussion on the parking ordinances? What's that?
So, Mark, this is something that's existed. Can you just give a little bit on this, traffic and vehicles?
This is the second reading. It was to clear up the confusion when I wasn't here in a meeting in January, but it's to make it absolutely clear that the council by resolution, when it creates new parking restrictions, has the ability to add a tow zone provision to it, because the existing ordinance only had it for public safety during emergencies by the police chief. So first reading last week, 2 weeks ago, I explained what the confusion was, sent you guys kind of a cover letter outlining it. This is just to make sure we legally are on the right footing to have the tow zone. Signs are being painted, tow trucks are getting ready, so it's ready to go shortly, I believe, as soon as you pass this resolution.
Thank you.
Well, actually, so it's a September enforcement target, but it'll be ready by the time the students come back to school.
Perfect.
And this is just one of the other...
And Sylvan Road got added to it also.
One of the other methods we're using to try to combat the issues we have in town, especially this past May and in the school year. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Number 11, a motion to adopt an ordinance of the town of Narragansett providing that Chapter 984 of the Code of Ordinances of the town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, be amended by the enactment of amendments to the budget for the town of Narragansett fiscal year beginning the first day of July 2013, ending the 30th day of June 2014.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Oops, sorry. Mr. Wojciechowski.
I happened to look on the computer and on notes to the financial statements, page 50, it noted that post-employment benefits, they cost really $4.8 million, but the contribution was only $2.5 million. So it looks like we're about $2 million short, which shows up again, the obligation goes from 16 to 18 million. So it looks like we're short. We haven't paid our bill. Yet you say here that we have a surplus, our undesignated account. I think I heard a surplus of $4 million. How can we have a surplus when we haven't paid our bill? We haven't put money for something that should be paid, and yet you're saying we have a surplus. There's an inconsistency here. Therefore, there's something wrong with this. There's something wrong. We gotta pay the bill. Something's wrong with this budget. You're adopting a budget which doesn't appear to be right. You should modify it, or we should pay the bill, or say we don't have the surplus. And I don't know where else, and there might be other issues also, but I just happened to come upon that one. It's on page 50.
Stanley, that's not the budget, that's the audit from last year.
The audit, yeah, the audit, but it's telling us that we have a bill that we hadn't paid, and yet you're saying on this statement here, this thing here is saying we have a $4 million surplus. Well, we really don't have a $4 million surplus because we didn't pay a $2 million bill. So it should be only a $2 million surplus. So it's wrong. So therefore, you're voting on something that's an error.
You're a smart person, Stanley. You know the accounting treatment and how language gets used in accounting statements and debits and credits and accrual versus cash. You know, right?
I understand that. I just want to bring it to mind that when we start using this surplus or undesignated fund account, I mean, we think we have all this money somewhere. Fact is, you don't. And I want to stop using it, so I'm minimizing or pay our bills. We've got to have a mind change here. We've got to pay attention to something like this. Something's wrong here. Just I want to pay attention as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 12, a motion to adopt the appropriation ordinance for the 2014-2015 fiscal year.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion.
James.
More? Mr. Wojciechowski.
I just want to comment on our budget. I just wanted to, first I wanted to thank Constable Mannix for bringing up the idea. We have a $550,000 settlement. I don't know where that went to, whether it was charged last year or added to the surplus this year, but it's unclear where this $550,000, I wanted it to help the taxpayer somehow, somewhere. But somehow it got messed up in some financial area there, and I'm confused. And when he mentioned here, the money is going straight to the reserve fund balance, money that we have kind of a surplus. So is it going there? Is it going to help reduce our taxes? I'm confused on where that one goes. That's question number one. Question number two, Councilman Hogopian really sparked me on this one. I kind of went in the budget here, and something about a school fund balance of $3 million. We got a school fund balance of $3 million, and they're asking for $370 coming out of $370,000 coming out of taxpayer when they got a balance of $3 million. Do they have a balance of $3 million and the town have a balance of $4 million? Do we have a total balance of $7 million? That's kind of what I don't know. I was trying to look at this thing, and I like, as I've said before, I want one fund balance, the town fund balance. We got a $4 million balance, fine. But does the school have another $3 million balance? Am I misreading this somehow? $7 million balance? It's not, doesn't sound right, but that's what the book kind of tells me. Something's wrong here. Again, there's something wrong here. $7 million balance. Monies that we don't really need. And then the other issue is, you're saying we need it for, to get a favorable interest rate on our bonds. Well, in the old days when there was a 6% interest rate and you could get it down to 3% because you had something going on like this, fine. But today, maybe the interest rate is only going to be 2%, so we're going to go put $4 or $5 million in some account to save 1% maybe on our bonds that we go. And right now, I think people don't want bonds. I don't think we want bonds. We don't want to mortgage ourselves to death. So we don't even need the bonds. We don't need to break in the interest rate. So why do we have all this money sitting around? I don't have that kind of money. I don't have that kind of percentage sitting around. Again, there's something wrong here. I protest.
Your time's up, Mr. Wojciechowski.
I protest, and I ask you to revisit and stop the excess money just hanging around there,
Thank you.
okay?
Mr. Brady?
First, I would second everything Stanley has said in the last few minutes. First question is, the 500, I rounded it off to 500, but the $550,000 exactly, where is it going?
The general fund.
The fund balance, it goes to the fund
I
balance.
think, okay, as I stated earlier tonight, I think that's a terrible mistake, that this needs to be locked in to either be sent back to the taxpayer or to protect the taxpayer by putting it into a specific account to pay down our pension debt. Both in that case and the $350,000. Why is the council giving the school committee $350,000 to pay their debts when Stanley says they have, I don't know what it was, 2 million or 3 million, but they say they have 640,000 to pay for an athletic field? Why is the council transferring money from your municipal account to the school committee to pay their debts for pension for school teachers? I do not understand it. Why are we doing it? I'm asking the question.
So Pam, can you address that a little bit on the budget? Because I don't think he was at the workshop, what happened with the planning of the school and what they projected and what wasn't there. Can you just, I know that Pat wasn't at that workshop, but maybe you can just sum it up for him.
The money is being left in fund balance so that our fund balance returns to our own policy level. We have a policy internally of a certain amount of money being in reserve for fund balance. We are not meeting that. That is why the money is staying in fund balance. Is there something else I have to add?
About the school, the projection of the school.
Excuse me?
About the schools, the projection of the money that the Superintendent Zapala spoke to.
The schools, we approached the school after they had held their budget hearings. Their budget was complete. We assessed them, our new finance director assessed them a different amount than Mr. Goodrich had assessed them because we needed everybody in the town to be paying the same. Due to the fact that they had already closed their budget and held their budget hearings, we held them to $352,000, and we'd pay the other, and that's why we did it, because Mrs. Kenyon arrived February 1st, and she ran into this difficulty when we were reviewing the pension obligations of both the school and the town with the actuaries. Very complicated situation. This is why we recommended to the council, and they accepted, that for this year only, we would help them meet their obligation, since it was relatively new demand that the town made. In fact, it was brand new, and they were all finished. They had come in completely level funded. What we were doing was placing on their budget another $600,000 and almost $700,000. So we cut that in half and asked the council, and they said yes.
I'm sorry, but I don't believe those are acceptable answers to the residents of this town.
Well, the
Well,
policy.
if that's your opinion, that's your opinion.
Right.
Right, but what we're
Right, I
doing...
mean, that's your opinion. We went through multiple meetings over the course of many weeks, and it wasn't easy, and any stretch. We stripped the capital budget to nearly nothing. We've funded the pension more than we funded it in, I think, a decade, maybe more.
More than that.
Maybe more than that.
21 years.
We've done, the settlement money could be used, as Matt said, to pay down the taxes. It could be put in a pension fund, but instead we put it towards fund balance to get back to our policy level, which is a policy decision that the town's made for years. We're trying to get back to that stage. The decisions we're making are not easy. We're cutting in different places, and personally, I think the schools are one of the best assets we have. I think your kids went there, I went there, he went there, he went there, your kids went there, and a lot of other people out there, and they all did pretty well. And I think that we have to support the school in a lot of respects. I know it's expensive, but that's the way I feel about it. That's why.
And not only that, in addition to that, that $300,000 is not going anywhere. We know where it is. It's our tax dollars. It doesn't belong to the school department. It may be assigned there, but it's still our money.
My understanding is that going to the state of Rhode Island to pay for pension pay down. Am I wrong?
No, it's staying here. The 300,000 you're talking about is staying here. It's in
So
that.
they're not paying
You,
their
you
citizens?
made reference to a ball field. That is out in a referendum. That's going to be up to the voters to decide. So it's premature to think that any of that money is going to be spent on a ball field until that referendum is passed or rejected by the voters in the town of Narragansett. So we can't project out. But we know where the money is. It's not going anywhere.
My understanding at the last workshop with the school committee was that that money was going to be paid to the state of Rhode Island. That 770,000, whatever that number was, 700 plus or minus.
It was half of that, I think. It was 300, was that what it was, 300?
We have a town pension. We are not part of the state pension. It's our own. It belongs to Narragansett, and it's invested by the Narragansett Pension Board. It's all controlled, administered inside of Narragansett.
By
We
the
are
school
not
committee?
part, excuse me?
By the school committee?
No, by the pension board of the town.
These aren't for
And the
teachers,
finance
Pat.
office.
This is not teacher pensions. This
Right.
is municipal workers that work for the school department and are funded by the town's pension.
Okay.
So they contribute to the town's pension.
Okay,
To-
I'm not going to belabor the point. We have a disagreement.
Mr. Alba?
It seems to me this is ancient history. This goes in year after year, that we have surpluses of $5 million, and yet they're asking for more money. It doesn't make any sense. If you have a surplus, you shouldn't be getting any more money. But as long as I've been coming to these meetings, I know Dave Crook used to always approve it no matter what. They could ask for $1 million and he would approve it. But if they got a surplus, they shouldn't be getting any more.
Thank you.
The most troubling part for me is, to Doug's point, the referendum hasn't passed, but the money has been set aside in the budget. We are increasing the budget this year. Under Carullo, you cannot unring that bell. And so next year, we must fund at least the amount we're funding this year, unless they choose to cut it. So this is not just a one-time helping the school with an issue. We've effectively set a new threshold for what the jumping off point is for the budget next year.
Mr. Mengermush?
I'd just like to revert to my former career as a professor of accounting and bemoan the fact that so much less is known about accounting now than there was 50 years ago. It is woeful. And one thing you try to do in the first day in class is tell people that retained earnings in a business or fund balance in municipal government, not-for-profits. This does not mean cash. This is what is left over. It is called equity. Equity may or may not be in cash. Equity, if you do a cash flow statement, you will see all over the balance sheet. Not that anybody knows what a balance sheet is anymore. But that fund surplus is in roads, it's in inventory, some may be in cash, but it is not liquid. And you just have got to deprive yourself of the notion that just because you've got a fund balance, this does not mean you can go in there, scoop, and come up with cash. And you would give this lecture in the first day of elementary accounting. They'd forget it the second day, but at least they remember it one day. And we're talking about something here that just is not right. A fund balance is not a stash of cash. And until people realize it, we're going to be spinning around here for many evenings.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart. I got her name. Ms. Stewart, this isn't a bonnet sure. This is not an Eastward Look discussion, you know. Just kidding.
Restrain myself. But no, I just want to thank Glenna for her revealing comment. I have math, accounting, nowhere in my realm of thinking. I don't speak the language. I don't understand what he just said, to be truthful with you. But I am glad that Glenna brought up that point, because I think the public needs to know the implications of what takes place between the municipal budget and the school budget, and implications for the future. That part I did understand, and thank you very much. And I have a grandson who's going to major in accounting, which means I'll never be able to speak the same language as him ever again. But unfortunately, I don't understand that much. But I think I heard you clearly that this is raising the level of funding for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Shebshelowitz.
I agree with the previous speaker, Mr. Brady. 5 of my children graduated from Narragansett schools, and I don't think I owe them everything that they did was great, because it wasn't a bed of roses for a couple of my children. They had a very hard time in the school. My 6 children are out of state, all working out of state, and have no intention of coming back here. My soon-to-be 7th grandchild, none of the children will come back here to go to school. And I just don't think, I think they ought to be looking at more of what they should be doing for seniors and what they should be doing for the library, rather than putting aside money always for the schools. Senior Center doesn't offer a lot of the things that South Kingstown does, and a lot of the Narragansett residents go over there. We do have a senior center, but it is a lot of trips that are expensive, and there's a lot of things like transportation that are not offered to seniors. And the housing authority is a big problem, and that's just been covered up year after year. There's no money for low-income people to seek housing. The seniors come to the town hall and they're told to go to South Kingston to look for housing. It's a disgrace the way you're taking care of your seniors.
Ms. Garceau.
Good evening to you all. Are we still on the agenda pertaining to where Patrick Brady spoke up in regard to education, the bill?
We're talking about the budget.
Okay. I have to say I concur with everything he said, okay? It's time that the people that are the, how would you say, the people in charge, the lawmakers, the people that the citizens elect, need to start listening to the people. In regards to education, there is still going on today that children want to go to a charter school have to become a lottery, pick by number who goes. That's wrong. And in regards to education, when children leave high school, they should have a degree, and that degree should be what they earned, not what the towns gives and the cities give. So I do concur with what Mr. Brady said, and thank him.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I just wanted a couple of things on the budget. And when we're in the work sessions, the $550,000 settlement money I mentioned, I talked about, so it's not something new that I came up with. We talked about it. Not a lot of people attend the work sessions, so Not everybody may have heard that, but and the reason I'm concerned about that is kind of similar to actually the ordinance on the raising of the, for the bad behaviors in East Looker by partygoers. Then money comes into the fund, and then for transparency, sometimes taxpayers feel like it goes into a black hole. And so my point is sometimes when we do raise fees or when we know we get unanticipated revenue, I'd like to see that return to the taxpayer in some way. So that is why I was advocating, because in the end, we sometimes lose sight of that and it becomes, town money or school money, and we forget that it really is the people's money. So that's my advocacy for that. And I was, hoping that we could amend the budget to knock down 1 percentage point from 2.46 to approximately 1.5% tax increase, because that money was not in the budget, and that could have come in 2018, it could have come in 4 years ago. And I understand all the things about the fund balance, and I know that it's not a free pot of money, but this is money that never would have gone there anyway, and we have to make choices when we look at a budget. Should that money go back to the taxpayer? Should it go to the pensions? Should it go to the fund balance? That's the choices that we make. I'm sharing. That was my major reason for voting against the budget, so I want everyone to understand that.
Looks like the discussion's over, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
No.
3-2, the motion carries. Moving to number 13, a motion to approve the contractual agreement between the town of Narragansett and Michael Loeffler to perform plumbing and mechanical inspections for the building official's office.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Nolan.
Yes, these are our 2 inspectors that are independent contractors that work inside the building inspector's office. They've been doing work for us they're very busy. They work every day. They've never had a raise, ever. They make $13,000 a year flat fee. I've moved them up in the budget to $15,000 a year. You asked that this be put on the agenda after, the last time you heard this, after the budget was passed. So the budget was just passed. So I've put these back on, I guess, just to inform you, or to get your approval of paying them the $15,000 versus the $13,000. Mr. Santilli could not be here tonight, or he would be here. He very much depends on these people. They are very valuable employees. They are independent contractors. There are no benefits paid whatsoever. They each they're busy almost every morning of the week. So one is our electrical inspector, one is our plumbing inspector. To have to go out and replace them as employees, part-time employees, would be at a much higher rate than what we're paying these people. I really ask that you do approve this.
And he spoke to us as well at the workshop,
Yes,
pretty
he
lengthy
did.
about it.
Yes.
How many inspections do they do?
I think
Excuse me, how many inspections do they do?
about 7,000 a year.
7,000
Yeah,
electrical
a year.
inspections a year?
Yes.
Wow.
It's a lot. It really is a lot of
How about plumbing
inspections.
inspections?
Same thing. They're very busy all the time, and they each have their own businesses, so they do this as a portion of their income, that's all. But they're very reliable. They come very highly recommended by our building inspector, Mr. Santilli.
That's right. No benefits, no pensions or anything on those?
No, they're independent contractors.
That's what I
by
was just saying to
contract, yeah.
Susan, right?
Yeah.
It's a good model for us.
And no travel costs?
We have them, either they ride with the fire marshal when he goes out, or they use a building inspection car. But we don't, so we do not reimburse them mileage or car usage.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
4-1, the motion carries. Number 14, a motion to approve the contractual agreement between the town of Narragansett and Raymond DeRosa to perform electrical inspections for the building official's office.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
And this is sort of mirroring the previous motion?
Same one. This is our electrical inspector. You've already passed the plumbing, this is the electrical inspector.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Thank you.
Nay.
4-1, the motion carries. New business, number 15, a motion to approve the 15-year lease with a 10-year option for Sunset Farm with Jeff Farrell, subject to approval of state and local regulations.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
And, Ms. Nolan and Mr. Wright,
Mr. Wright, yes.
Mr. Wright, could you just explain the term of years and how you came to that number for us? And the whole process, actually, if you could. And why we need this.
Good evening. First of all, Mr. Farrell and his family have been on this farm for the last 15 years with no formal lease. What I tried to do, what I've been doing for the last several months, been working with him, and basically, if you go to Exhibit B, which is the caretaker lease, the termination, rental determination worksheet, I took a look at exactly what he performs as far as his responsibilities for the farm, for all of the work around Kinney Bungalow, plowing. Let me just go back to the second page here so I can. He provides surveillance, response times, nuisance. Obviously it's a public farm. He provides all the maintenance. He's going to do all of the snow plowing. He's going to repair all the buildings for the entire complex, all the fencing repairs. He's going to take care of all of the annual boiler maintenance. He does all the mulching on the ornamental beds, all fertilizing. He does the septic tank annual inspection. He's going to be cutting back all the brush along the fields and maintain the public community garden program, and also working with the Parks Department for any public access. And he also communicates with the Parks Department, myself, or the community development folks on a regular basis. So what he needs to do is, he also, as you know, runs the farm store and has, I think at this time, 80 beef cows, which he also leases DEM fields, and I believe that lease runs 5 to 10 years. Is that correct, Jeff? So with that long-term lease, he needs a long-term lease to be able to acquire grants from DEM, and also that long-term lease for other properties to be able to feed his beef cows. So what I'm recommending is a 15-year lease with a 10-year option, similar to what other leases that we have in town.
And in case something goes wrong, or on either side, there's provisions to break the lease or make amendments, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, we've been working very well together. The communications has been great. He works very well with Lisa Roy with Kinney Bungalow. He responds to any problems around the outside of the building. Again, I have a great working relationship with him, and I think it's a win-win for the town. He's been there for 15 years. I think this provides security for the town and for the Farrells. And why I also included Exhibit C in the packet. This work he did on his own with materials provided with the town, and he provided me hundreds of pictures. I just tried to pick out some of the highlights of the work he's done in the first 15 years that he's been there.
So Steve, that's the list 2004, and it has a number of different things that were done on the farm.
Exactly.
Because that's an incredible amount of work in each of those years. Good, all right.
So this lease is really just papering the file, right? Just making sure the town doesn't have the liability. This is just a legal agreement memorializing what's already in place and has been for some time.
Exactly, and that's why I included it in this, and plus all the insurances will be on file in my office, including the town hall. Everything is here, and it just makes it, it's a working document, which we really, really do need to, similar to all the other documents that we've been producing for the last 4 or 5 years.
Thank you very much. Okay. Mr. Brady.
The first wind I got from this was Friday. I happened to see it on the agenda. The lease was not available Friday. I did read the lease this afternoon 2 or 3 times. This is a new lease, It definitely does memorialize the existing conditions if you approve it tonight. It grants to the leasee, Mr. Fowle, I do not know Mr. Fowle, so I'm speaking specifically symbolically here, and what the lease says. And it says he has the rights to the entire parcel for the next 15 years to do with as he wishes. There are no restrictions as to what portion of the farm is allowed for his specific landscaping business or his retail business. That needs to be etched in stone in this lease. What portions is he allowed to use actively, and what portions of the farm for the town is he going to be maintaining in their existing condition unless the town tells him to do otherwise? And the lease is wide open at this point. There must be restrictions on this lease as to what portions he can actively use. There is no cost to the leasee in this. For 15 years, there's no cost. There's been no cost to him for the last 15 years. He's done a lot of improvements, no doubt about it. But he's also had free use of the property. He's had free business location for 2 businesses, probably actually 3. He has his landscaping business. He has a retail sales business of vegetables and things he grows on the farm. And he also sells meat. I don't know how he sells meat there, but he has signs saying he sells meat. So I think there's a problem there. There is no sharing of profits, that whatever he produces, there's no sharing and giving back to the town some portion. That needs to be clarified. But the most important issues that are the problem here is I was involved in this property when it first was taken over by the town. I know the property very well. It was in pristine condition in the late 1980s. It is not in pristine condition now. There are backfields that have become debris dump areas. I don't know who's doing it, but they are there. They need to be documented, and a remediation plan has to be developed before this lease is signed so that everybody knows whose responsibility for the existing situations, who has to fix it, who did it. We have his landscaping, all his supplies, and his supply business, all his equipment is right adjacent to the new parking lot for the bungalow for weddings. This does not help the town rent this for weddings. So you're going to allow me 3 minutes, one person 3 minutes, and you're going to grant a 15-year lease.
Mr. Brady, your time's up.
It's unacceptable.
Ms. Garceau.
Mr. Brady has brought up some very good points, and I think the town council should consider those points and make some kind of adjustments to that. That farm is beautiful, it's well done, it's well taken care of, and I applaud Mr. Farrell for doing an excellent job. But what was presented to you this evening by Patrick should be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kegels.
I haven't read the lease, and I'm sure at some level it gets approved by the town solicitor. So I'm not so concerned about the lease. I can tell you this, Jeff Farrell is an amazing individual. And to suggest that he doesn't give anything back to the town is absurd. It may not be in dollars, but he has done an enormous amount of work for the town, and I think you have it in front of you. Just the suggestion that he doesn't pay back is ridiculous. He's a terrific guy to do business with on a business level, and he certainly is taking care of that farm. There may be a few issues. I don't know anything about issues on dumping. Land use and the use of a small portion of the barn for his retail business, I don't think is an issue. I'm sure he'd be willing to address it in a lease, but to suggest that this whole thing should be held up because of that is really a disservice to Jeff. And I do think that your much greater problem down the road is when Jeff retires. Try to replace him. He's just a unique individual. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chorney.
Good evening, Harris Chorney. I have to agree with this previous speakers. I'm certain there's a lot of history here that I don't know about in terms of the property and the purpose. But it's a very large piece of land that's an asset to Narragansett. And I think I'd be concerned about setting a precedent of giving a lease, providing a lease at zero cost with other property that Narragansett might own, where other people may want to get a lease for zero. I mean, all you have to do is look at Middle Bridge, where we own that property. We have people in the process, or we will ultimately have people who are going to pay us for the use of that property. I'm not certain why we're not at least looking at that and considering that here in this particular situation also. So I would recommend at a minimum that we at least look at the situation as to why there isn't the town is not generating revenue from this piece of property, other than Kenny Bungalow, obviously. The other point, and this is probably not as major, but when I looked at the lease very quickly, I did notice that the lessor, being town of Narragansett, if they wanted to cancel or terminate the lease, they would have to give a notice of 2 years to the lessee. I'm not certain why it's 2 years, why it has to be that long in case something that the town determined there was a more significant use of that property, why a lessee would need 2 years. So I would just also take a look at that. But the major point is the revenue side of things.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. Number 16, a motion to read, introduce, pass, and accept a first reading, an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 70, Article 2 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled Taxation and Finance Utility Payments.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 17, a motion to approve the settlement and authorize the town solicitor to sign a settlement agreement to resolve litigation that was filed against the town by Salt Pond Corp. Stop and Shop.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mark, can you provide a summary of this for the public?
My letter fairly well explains it, I believe. This is a tax appeal filed against the town. The acting assessor, Mr. Booth, retained an outside appraiser, which we used to help with evaluation. They met with representatives of the Stop and Shop and came to an agreement on what should be the appropriate valuation. So Alan Booth made the recommendation that the assessment be reduced slightly. As a result, for the years 2012 and 13, there's a refund of about $22,000, and 2014's tax bill will be based upon the new assessment. This will resolve 3 outstanding cases in the Superior Court.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Number 18, a motion to approve a contract with RT Group, Inc. for survey and preliminary design services for the Scarborough Wastewater Treatment Facilities flood proofing project in the amount of $19,700.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 19, a motion to reappoint Carmina Moretti, an individual, to the Towers Committee for a 2-year term that will expire on 6/1/2016.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 20, it's a lot of them here, so I'm just going to go one by one. A motion to reappoint 4 individuals to the Galilee Advisory Committee for 2-year terms, which expire on 5/31/2016, and reappoint 5 individuals to a 1-year term, which expire on 5/31/15. The 2-year terms, I guess I'm not sure exactly how to do this.
I would just do one by one.
One by one?
Yeah, because
Okay.
because you group them, they're not
All right,
Right.
so I'll go with the two-year term people first. A motion to reappoint William Shepard to the advisory committee for a two-year term will expire on 5/31/2016.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to reappoint Richard Waddlet to the Galley Advisory Committee for a two-year term which will expire on 5/31/2016.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A motion to reappoint Barry Kennard to the Galley Advisory Committee for a two-year term to expire on 5/31/2016.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And a motion to reappoint Edward Duckworth Jr. to the Advisory Committee for a two-year term which expire on 5/31/2016.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And a motion to reappoint Harvey Cataldo to a one-year term which expire on 5/31/15.
I'll move that motion.
Second. I have a question, Ann, about all these people, because I'm on the Galley Advisory Committee as the liaison. There's no other applications pending, right? These are all reappointments, just so the public knows that. There's no, so it's kind of strange they're all at once.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to reappoint David Crook Sr. to the Galley Advisory Committee for a one-year term which expire on 5/31/15.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
A motion to reappoint John A. Thompson to the Galley Advisory Committee for a one-year term which will expire on 5/31/15.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And a motion to reappoint Kevin Costco to the Galley Advisory Committee for a one-year term to expire on 5/31/15.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And lastly, but not least, a motion to reappoint Raymond DeRosa to a one-year term on the Galley Advisory Committee to expire on 5/31/15.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to number 21, a motion to discuss and possible action on the status of the signs for the trash containers in Galilee, cameras to monitor the trash cans, and the tag and tow sign in Galilee.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. McLaughlin, Ms. Nolan?
Mr. McLaughlin asked for this. What I can tell you is that the trash cans in Galilee, some of them, I think 6. I talked to Mr. Zemansky from DPW today, John Zemansky. He's the person making the signs for us, and he has about 6 cans with signs that say not for residential trash, cameras in use. The cameras are DEM cameras, and they are in use, and if we need them, we can use them, and we can get the information that we need from them. Today, when I talked to Mr. Zemansky, he told me that he would continue with the signs. I would like him to put them on all the trash cans there. As far as the rest of the conversation is the tag and tow sign. While I was in his sign-making shop, we also spoke about the tag and tow signs. They will go on existing signs, and they will be made, and he hopes to have them up within the next 2 weeks. We did talk about ordering them from a private company, but that will take about a month, and he feels that he can do this faster since the season has begun. And today, this afternoon, the chief of police would like them to say, have the tow sign. The sign is actually a tow truck pulling a car, but underneath it say in excess of 24 hours. And I have not talked to Mr. Zemansky yet to see if that's possible. So that's where we stand, Doug.
Mr. President?
Mr. McLaughlin?
I would like to give you a little background on this. There's several trash cans located on that highway, all the way from the Great Island Bridge down in through by George's. All during the wintertime, several of those barrels are used by people on Great Island, not solely by them, but mostly by them. Several other people around that neighborhood deposit their trash there rather than hire a trash hauler to take their trash away. And as a result of that, we send our Public Works employees down there, 2 men in a truck once or twice a week to pick up the trash. And the sad part about it is sometimes if the barrels are full, if they get full over the weekend, and the Department of Public Works are usually there the first thing Monday morning, if they're full, they just take the trash and throw them beside the barrels, and the seagulls get at the trash and make a mess of Galloway. I wanted the posting on the barrels down there to give everybody an opportunity to understand the ordinance, the violation of the ordinance. And thanks to Ziggy, he was able to get the signs out in a timely fashion for us. That's one step forward. And now I just hope that everybody on Great Island is aware that we're going to be watching with the closed circuit cameras and prosecuting anybody who throws the trash in those barrels. That's not what it's for. So that part of it is taken care of, or well on our way there anyway. The other part of it is the tow zone signs. During the summer months in Galilee, people will park their cars along the highway and go to Block Island for a week or 2 weeks and just leave them there, take the $30 hit or whatever the fine is for the parking ticket and leave it there. I've witnessed on one 4th of July, the year before last, one lady parked in a parked near a fire hydrant, blocking a fire hydrant, was in violation, and when she was told to move it by a state employee down there, she said, "I don't care, tow it. I'm going to Block Island," and that's basically what the attitude is. So I think that in fairness to all the businesses in Narragansett and Galilee in particular, I think they should have that tow zone, they should have that ability to tow the vehicles out of there. They shouldn't be using our streets in our limited parking down there as a parking lot for Block Island. They certainly use enough of our space down there for those purposes. So I would like to have a follow-up. I hate to annoy the clerk on my agenda items, because I'm usually late submitting them, but I would like to, if it's okay with the council, if we could continue this to the next meeting for an update on the tow zone and the cameras and the enforcement issue on the highway down there. Could we do that, if that's okay with you? Thank you very much.
So, to make the motion to continue to the next meeting?
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 22, motion on discussion and possible action on a financial report from the Finance Committee in regards to the overall financial condition of the town.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
All right, this is mine also. Since I was appointed to the council, I've had the pleasure to read all our financial reports, our budget, and I find it to be very, very complicated. And there's a lot of misinformation in the community as to how well we are doing. I don't know if it was the last Finance Committee meeting, I complimented them on the presentation that they had before the council with all their graphs and all the fine work that they did there. And one of the questions they had was, well, what else could we be doing now? And I said, one of the problems I had personally was understanding the budget, understanding all the numbers, understanding what OPEB means and what the OC means and the real true financial condition of the town in simple layman's terms. And why I have this on here now, I would like to give them our approval, if you will, or a resolution, if you will, directing them to submit a report in layman's terms on the financial condition of the town of Narragansett. When I say layman's terms, explanations of OPEB, if you have to use those words, or OC, or all those other things, so that everybody clearly understands the true financial condition of our town. And I usually, a quick example, and I'll get away from it because we have to be out of here by 9:30, I think. In this report of our finances here, there's a left-hand page that's two paragraphs that are about maybe 3 inches long. It's on the left-hand page, talking about pensions and making references. If you want more information, go to another section of the document, and you'll get more information on it. The biggest gorilla in this whole budget, the pensions, in our liability, and the single thing that's just dragging this town down has 2 paragraphs. And does it define it in all the numbers? Yeah, but you have to understand the numbers, and you have to understand where to go to find them, to absorb it. So hopefully, and it may be a big task, it may not come out right, but at least give it an effort, have the Finance Committee prepare this document, and they can forward it back to the council, and we can decide what we would like to do with it.
So like on the web or, individual
No,
mailings?
an individual report, much like they did with their other PowerPoint presentation a couple of meetings ago, something similar to that. But in lay terms, so that the average guy or average woman can understand the true condition of the town of Narragansett financially. It doesn't have to be all negative either, but I think everybody should really know where we are.
Is that going to be, Pam, is that going to be tough for the town as far as mailings and just is that a possibility down the road?
You're addressing me.
Yes, I'm asking. I'm just asking the possibility because
We've
there's a
had
lot of
very-
ways to communicate it.
Well, I think mail might be the poorest way to try to get, it'd have to be very succinct. I would think probably this venue would be the best venue.
I personally would like
Or
to
a
see
city.
I'd like to see the report first, Susie.
Okay.
Then we can decide what we want to do with it. Because we
Sounds
don't
good.
know, it may not come out the way we want, or
Okay, sounds good.
then we can talk about it later. Have them report, that's what they do anyway. They advise the council, have them advise us, and then we can take
In
it from
simple
there.
terms, okay, Harris? Simple terms.
Very simple.
The Finance Committee was very helpful to us when we were leading into the pension negotiations last year. I remember that briefing, and kind of a pall was over this whole room. It was approximately a year ago, and that was something that was presented in, I thought, simple terms and was helpful. I think a way to achieve, though, Doug's goal here is we could also, the budget itself that we have, and maybe it would just mean delaying the workshops a few days if we just had more copies available to the public. Because in the work sessions, people are sitting in the audience and many of them don't have a copy. And I think that would be minimal cost, and that way they can be flipping through the budget alongside us. So that would be something that I would advocate for, because that way people can read that budget and work through it as we're working through it, because I felt like if I sat in the audience in the past, and I didn't get a budget when I was sitting in the audience. So if people want it, and I think that would be, because once you get a hang of it, you can kind of figure out where the items are, where the line items are. That's what we should, you know what I mean, Pam? And that would just mean a delay
It
of.
is online before.
Yeah, but people would have to print that out.
They have to print it
Right.
out. But if we print it out,
That's not a huge cost compared to.
it's a pretty good.
But I think we
it's
should
pretty
have
good
copies.
cost.
I feel pretty strongly
We
that.
do put it online. A lot of people have what Mark has here, iPads. I'm just trying to save the town money.
I agree, but I think that amount for
Forest, trees in the
transparency,
forest.
I think for that amount of but they would be printing it out at home then, right?
Yeah, they'd have to do
Right,
that.
so they're still killing the tree. So I think my point would be to just have several packets there. It's a few days. We might delay our budget work
It's a
session.
dilemma. It is.
I don't think it's a big
Understand.
dilemma. I think we could do it.
So that's next year. Can we talk about that next year? I think this is about the, sorry.
Mr. Vingermish?
It may be that the chairman of the committee will speak also for the committee. I was going to speak on this point at the public forum, but I saw this motion and waited. We are, in answer to Doug's question, even more perilous state than we were just a couple of weeks ago. The state of Rhode Island is attempting to drag in cities and towns into this legal dispute it is having with the unions before Judge Taft Carter. A rather frightening thing, I think, in that no one has prepared here for that. So this is ominous. What really frightens me, and I want to be very specific, is our failure to seriously handle the retirees. I really believe that maybe we don't have the time right now to do it, but every retiree should be on notice in the next retirement check or goodie that they get, that their goodies are threatened, and that we want to reserve our right to do something. Now, we had sometime last year, I called it a quarter-hearted attempt. It wasn't even a half-hearted attempt.
Professor, do you mind if I interrupt you for a second? What if you were one of these retirees?
I'm sorry.
What if you were one of these retirees? What would you say to that? I think it's a good idea. I think we have to make the attempt. But what would you say if you were them, one of them?
My retiree, okay, if I were them, I would hold on to what I got at all cost. This is what Rich Kerbel and Don Goodrich reported back to us. They don't want to give up anything. No, we could have said, we could have figured that out, Rich and Don. Why did you even bother to do anything? They had no attempt, no interest in doing anything. They just said, well, they don't want to give it up, the health plan. Well, wow, isn't that a brilliant statement? They really, I believe, and I used West Warwick as an example last time, West Warwick did this. We are last in OPEB, that is other post-employment benefits, other than pensions, as you can imagine. We are last in the state of Rhode Island. We are the worst, and we must notify retirees that we want to be out of this status. And we really don't care. We do care, but I don't care about, I don't want to give anything up. We have the power to do something, and we have chosen not to do it. Now, you could say we have to, current negotiations are going on. We don't have the time. We must play hardball with our retirees like we're playing hardball with our current employees. We have somehow got to galvanize ourselves, but the first thing we must do is make a public statement to each retiree in their next, however they get their pay or pension, that we are seriously planning to do something, not like the previous time in which, believe me, the interim manager and the finance director gave us lip service as how tough they would be. They didn't do anything. And it's easy to believe. Now, this to me is crucial, that we must establish a formal position now by notification of this board to the retirees that we have had enough, and that our quarter-hearted attempt, it wasn't a half-hearted attempt. I know what a half-hearted attempt is. This was a quarter or an eighth-hearted attempt. Is not going to be what we do this time. And to me, being last in the state of Rhode Island, in towns and cities for OPEB, is a disgrace. And the 5 people up there, I believe, should make a firm statement in that statement to retirees.
Professor, do you want
this game has to change?
Do you want this report to come out or not? You're in the committee. Do you want to have this report come out? Would you want to help out with this report?
Well, that would be, that's what would I say that in a report? Absolutely, yes. And really not the most aggressive person on the committee, the second most.
Ms. Garceau.
If you work for a big company that's well known throughout the world, and you retire from them, and you collect a pension from them, and they pay your medical insurance and your medicine and so forth, but they go bankrupt, what are you going to do? There's nothing you can do when they file bankruptcy. But when you have an institution, a municipality, that has not provided the funding the way you were supposed to, I would hope that the employees would sue the town. Plain and simple. So I hope that answers your question to what you posed to. Sorry, senior moment, thank you. I hope you understood what I was trying to say.
Mr. President?
Mr. McLaughlin.
Could we please restrict the conversation to this report that I'm requesting? This has been going on with me personally for more than a month, and I'd like to get to resolve it, whether the council can agree to do it, to ask that committee to generate that report. That's really what we're talking about here. We could go on and on for months talking about some of the issues that have just been raised.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Did you guys vote? Did you guys want to vote?
I voted.
I'm going to abstain. It was a motion for discussion. I don't even know what I'm voting for. So I'm going to abstain. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Lana, do you want to vote? Did you vote?
I voted aye, but is there a motion? I guess Matt raises a good point. There's really not a motion, but so we make a motion.
More like a resolution asking if we can agree to ask the committee to formulate that report and generate that report back to us.
And they can report back to us.
Yeah,
And
that's
they
how
can
I took
report
them.
back to us with that report,
That's
hopefully.
fine.
All right.
That's how I voted. Are you
I'll
okay
make-
with
I'll-
that?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
That's how I read the motion, actually.
Right.
It wasn't a motion. It
Thank
was
you.
just to discuss
Right.
It's just a
Possible
But,
action.
Yeah, I read it
Robert's
like what he-
rules. Jones in the audience.
A motion to review and discuss the cost recovery ordinance.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
So I put this on because this came up at the URI working meeting, the senior center. Some people had asked about it, and it actually made me think about this ordinance. I think it was maybe a few years old now. So I just wanted to review what the ordinance actually says, Mark, and just want to ask the chief, have we actually used it, and sort of so the public knows that there is an ordinance out there, and what it really means to the town. So, Mark?
There is an ordinance that's been on the books for a couple of years now. A lot of debate took place before it got enacted, a lot of public comments pro and con for it. It was modified a couple of times based upon some commentary. The ordinance basically provides a system of if there is and it's all definitional, go to step through the ordinance, but basically if there's a significant disturbance at a piece of property the police are called to or fire rescue is called to, that would be event number one, which could trigger or should trigger a warning to the property owner, to the tenants, to the organizers of the event in writing. And that notice and warning indicates that if in the next 12 months there is another event that causes a disturbance that meets the definition under the ordinance, and that includes noise disturbance or an orange sticker or a few of the others that are defined throughout our code of ordinances. So event number two triggers the ability of the town to charge for the response by a calculation of what's the actual officer time, what's the cruiser utilization time, what's the rescue time if they were required to appear at the scene. So it's a notice-based, first instance is a warning, second instance in 12 months is subject to cost recovery, and then there's an appeal to the town manager if you're dissatisfied with the assessment.
So do we have a way to cost it out, what it would
Yeah, we do.
cost? Or
We do, actually, there are, and Dean can tell you, that there are statistics and there are valuations that are associated with the wages and with the cruiser utilization or rescue utilization, so it's easy to plug that in relative to timeframes. Likewise, if it's DPW, you can plug in their hourly rates of an overtime rate. So there are mechanisms to actually cost it out and figure out what the time involved is. It does involve notice the first time, and every ordinance I reviewed, and I pulled the file out tonight, and we looked at probably 40 or 50 of them, all had some form of notification, and then how many times do you get to have an incident for causing police before you get assessed. Most are 2 or 3. There are numbers that are 1, and we took the road of 1 warning. 1 warning, then you're assessed or could be assessed. And then we have the same appeal process that most of the municipalities have that I looked at, either through municipal court, which we rejected. We put it through the town manager's office as the director of public safety as the appeal process.
So have we used the ordinance? Actually, have we put it into play, Dean? I'm just curious so people know it exists. We have a way of allocating the cost and how useful the ordinance is to the town.
And just while the chief's coming up, Susan, just because he and I met over the incident that's generated all the debate and discussion to look at the application of the ordinance as it applies to that. And we've had some discussions about how are we going to get set for the fall to make better use of it in terms of upfront notification, a series of standard warning letters that can be handed out on the scene, which have not been used in the past. So we have a process in mind, and a meeting with the manager coming up to walk through what could be a better way to make make use of the ordinance in the fall so it's more effective.
Okay, great.
In looking at the incident in early May, just the police response is around $2,800 just for the officers involved. Waiting now for the numbers for Public Works for their equipment and staff, as well as the minimum housing inspector and the building inspector. Once we have all that together, we will be requesting payment from the renters of one of the residents that was the primary, what we could determine was the primary resident that had the party. Like Mark said, we've looked at a lot of things that we've done in the past and how we can do them better. We'll have a form letter that upon Monday morning when our review process starts for community policing, any resident that's had a major incident, 50 or more people, it's been a significant disturbance to the neighborhood, as practice now, will get that warning letter. And the owner of the home will be sent a certified copy of that so that they get that also. They know their tenants have been warned. It is most common when we go to a large disturbance or party, if they get an orange sticker, that it's a very small percentage of houses we return to that have the sticker. So that would be the subsequent response. Of those, they are cited under the nuisance ordinance, fined under the nuisance ordinance, which now has gone up to $500 per renter. In addition, we will now, they'll have this letter already, and then we'll cite them for any costs for whether it was 2 officers or 4 officers or whatever it took to break it up and shut it down.
Right, so you might add some things to the ordinance and bring it back to us? I mean, is it...
No, I think it's in the ordinance now from what Mark and I looked at as far as formulating a letter, a warning letter to meet the requirements, and there is warning required.
So that's not changing it if you're just adding a form letter?
Yeah, we're going to have a standardized form letter that will automatically go to any gathering that's significant, so we can show that we've met that need, that criteria.
Okay.
I'd also point out that the ordinance, as initially drafted, had no cap on the amount that could be assessed. It came back, if you remember, because of a lot of public debate and dialogue about potential excessive liability, where a former council, it was before you guys amended it to cap it at $2,000. So the ordinance presently has a cap of $2,000, which was put in March of 2012.
Thanks, that helps. I just wanted people to know about it.
We probably should just have a report on like, not a motion, but some kind of report where what this whole plan looks like when we're going into September, if that makes sense, Dean? Some kind of, like, what the plan would, like, look like, so as you take your time, put together the letter, will go out. You just described it, basically, but would that be useful for us?
I'll
or
have
not?
a plan for the council and for the manager prior to the end of August, which will have all the bullet points, what our plan is, all the different things we're going to try to utilize this year. And so you'll have an idea what we're going to do differently.
Great.
Some of that we may discuss in executive session. I don't want to telegraph everything that the police department's coming up with.
That would be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ferrandi.
Thank you, council members. Steve Ferrandi, 44 Sylvan Road, in Eastwood Look. I'm glad to hear this evening that, you know, we're finally getting some clarity on an ordinance that we have had for 2 years. Unfortunately, we haven't had the enforcement we would like, but, you know, let's get a new beginning and get all our ducks in a row legally and everything else. It does have some limitations, you know, in this type of situation. Everybody needs a second chance, a nuisance house, all of this stuff. But, you know, if we never send out that first notice, sometimes that first notice is all that's needed as a deterrent. So I do agree with it. I do agree with monitoring it also. You know, here it is, we've had it 2 years and we really don't know how many times we use it, how many times we haven't. You know, this is what happens. We get an ordinance passed and we think it's gonna be the best thing since sliced bread, and, you know, there's no monitoring of it. So very critical. A lot of times the ordinance is, as just, like I said, it's more of a deterrent, but you're gonna involve the owners, you're gonna involve whoever's living in the property, and these go to the direct actions of what everyone's trying to solve here, which is these nuisance-type activities. I know, Dean, you said, you know, it has to be 50 or more. I mean, is there an adjustment on that? I mean, sometimes if it's less than that, I know we've mirrored this ordinance to mirror what we've done with the, or put it in conjunction with the current nuisance ordinance, as to make it, I believe, Mark, you put it close to, you kind of mirrored the nuisance ordinance a little bit to make it pass muster legality-wise. So, you know, let's use it, and let's see what we can do with it. Thank you, council.
Thank you. Mr. Wojciechowski.
I'm hoping, you know, when we're talking about cost, the cost is going to be to those who create the problem, okay? We're going to identify those who are making all the noise and causing the trouble, and they're going to be assessed to cost. I'm hoping that's going to happen. I also would like, part of this, I'd like you to include a list. It's public information when somebody has a violations in a paper or whatever. So I've asked for a list. I've asked for no list, but I've asked for a list of people who are causing trouble. Give me a list of those who have been fined and drunk and everything. In fact, I called the police department looking for a list of students or others who have a violation. I go on a website to visit the judiciary to check on people, but I don't have ability to find out who these bad people are, so I don't rent to them. How about assisting the landlord in determining, because, you know, I had a bad person at URI one time, and all of a sudden I see him here. So they just go from one house to another. Now, if there was a list of all the drunk and disorderly people that they could keep and we could access on the internet, so now we don't have to rent to these people who have already had some issue with noise. I'd like to be a little proactive here, get on a positive side. I need some help with that list of those who caused the trouble, so I won't put them in my house. I had other landlords also ask me to create the list. You know, you go to the paper and get it all, and I just can't afford it at this time. You just follow the paper, all the drunk and disorderly. You see it on you watch the traffic stops, DUIs and all that. We need a list of all those things. They're already there, but it seems so easy with the computers now that the police could just maintain that list as they make all these charges. Would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Garceau.
we're on the part for the ordinances pertaining to the course. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I have to say, from what I've heard and what has taken place here in the town of Narragansett, I feel very strongly that people that reside here, there's ways of addressing things that they do, that they shouldn't be doing, and we have a wonderful police department who handles it, okay? If it means you have to hire more people to put on to address those concerns, that's what you do, okay? You have landlords, and I was a landlord, and you do a good job with your tenants, but you don't know what kind of tenants you're gonna have in there. You don't know. You're not responsible for another person's on how they behave. That's the police department. And Stanley has said that over and over. You have to find a way to do what other communities are doing. And first of all, Narragansett is a snowbird town in the winter for students. In Florida, it's snowbird time from the people from Rhode Island. But you have students that fill up the houses here. And in Florida, it's the old people that fill up the houses. And they're making money on renting the property. What is wrong with that? You go into renting your property, you don't want to make any money? I don't think so. In Florida, they have a 10% penalty and another, I call it a penalty, but it's a tax, and another 11%, I think, for the renters. One goes to the community, one goes to the state. Somebody rents your tenement, they have to pay for that too. That goes to the community and to the state. Why don't you implement something like that? It's just reversed. Florida has snowbirds, Narragansett has students. And they are landlords and they're in the business to make money. And I don't blame them, and I wish the hell I had their houses too. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no action to take, right?
Oh, no, they're gonna bring back something right before September. Yeah, we're just gonna ask to get something back right before the fall on this ordinance.
We'll get you an outline in terms of what the plan is.
That's fine.
Sounds good. Ms. Stewart?
Good evening again, and thank you. Thank you for bringing this up, and I know this ordinance was borrowed from Amherst, and I know in California and other cities and towns, college towns have similar ordinances. And so people get up and they're concerned that the students are being punished, they're getting up concerned the landlords are being punished, and everyone has an opinion about who's right and who's wrong, and they shouldn't be charged a fee to rent their property, and they're paying exorbitant prices to register. I don't want to hear any of it. I don't want to hear any of it from anyone anymore. What I want to say is I appreciate that there are a number of players. We know that it's URI, and we know that it's the police, and we know it's the town council making ordinances, and we know all that. Remember, we also have summer rentals. These houses that are rented to the students in the winter months, then they leave, and we have the summer. And we never know what we're going to get in the summer either, so we can't talk about snowbirds and students and all that. It's a year-round issue. And the people are, and thank you for taking this up. Thank you for bringing up any attention to mitigate, because we'll always have rentals. We understand that. I've lived here 40 years. I'm not a native, but I understand you live with them. The point is that that you have to control the situation so that people can live in peace and have a peaceful existence. There are realtors trolling my neighborhood. I've been stopped twice this week. Would you like to sell your house? I've got an out-of-state investor who's looking to buy in Eastwood Look. I said, I'm not interested. Again today, another realtor driving by, stopping me in front of my house. This is sickening. This is sickening what people are doing to our town. So you just take it from there. But it's time to control the situation, and thank you for all of you who are trying to address the issue. And I'm not pointing at landlords any more than homeowners, any more than realtors, any more than students or summer people. I'm just saying thank you for recognizing there is an issue in this town, and it's time that everyone wakes up to it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
No action on that, right?
Chief Hoxie and Mr. McSally and Ms. Knoll will report back to us on that issue. Number 24, a motion to direct the town manager to begin discussion with the state to explore the possibility of owning the Dillon Rotary.
So move.
Second. I actually put this on the agenda, and actually I heard that the town maintains the Rotary a little bit, so I thought it would be a good idea, if the council's pleasure, to have the town manager maybe talk to the state about maybe gifting it to the town, you know, giving it to us for $1 or something. But certainly it's an interesting Rotary, and certainly there's been a lot of activity. I won't bring up flags or anything, but a lot of conversation around that piece of property. So I just thought it would be something at least to talk about.
The state did make the suggestion to me when I was talking to them about the exchange of flags that we've had recently. So I will call, I've got the number, I'll call them back and begin the conversation if you so agree.
I think it's great, and I haven't talked much about the flags, and I was the one who actually made the suggestion to put the Wounded Warrior flag up there. I did that last summer. June 17th was the time I did it, and we voted unanimously to recognize the Wounded Warrior, the Wounded Warriors with that. And I was concerned about I wanted to make sure that we did that as a town. It was on the eve of 4th of July. People have been at war for a long time with the war on terrorism, and so we voted to do that, and I'm glad that we did it. And it was really a tribute to the veterans. It was a tribute to the Wounded Warriors. That's why I did it. I did know that the town didn't own the property, but I did know that we maintained it. So I was aware of all those facts, and I was just glad. I think it was a very positive thing for the town, and I'm glad that now the Wounded Warrior flag is back up, and I'm glad that we'll be taking steps to have it to have that be a town property. So thank you.
Ms. Garceau?
I'd like to share something with you. It goes back to the year 2004. And it's in June 21st, 2004. There was a town council meeting, and it was a motion to request that the Rhode Island Department of Transportation named a rotary located at the intersection of Kingston Road and Old Point Judith Road in honor of Charles Ted Wright. In the minutes, it says, and it's in Book 43, page 179, June 21st, 2004. It is unanimously voted to request that the Rhode Island DOT named a rotary located at the intersection of Kingston Road and Old Point Judith Road in honor of Charles Ted Wright, quotation, it further unanimously voted that if the state does not agree to this, that the town council name the park at the Rotary in honor of Charles Ted Wright. So my concern is that the Rotary, which I can't find, is maintained by the town. Is that correct? This pertains to the names, correct? Okay. So if they're maintaining it, then why do people come here? No, let me say it in a different way. Who maintains the Rotary? The town or the DOT?
The town.
The town does, okay. So if they're maintaining it, it appears to me that the town manager is responsible for actions that take place if the flags go up at half-mast or not, or on property. Is that her responsibility too?
We're maintaining it, but
No,
we
I'm
don't
asking
own
a
it.
question pertaining to a subject pertaining to the Rotary, please. Who maintains when the flags are at half-mast? Who maintains that? That's my question. The town does? Okay, thank you for answering my question. I didn't understand. Okay, so if the town maintains the flags, what took place for what you did a wonderful job in allowing to put up that flag, and I've learned a lot about that wounded warrior myself, so thank you to the young lady. I also have a blanket too. Thank you. At the same time, when a person is told the flag is going to be up there, and it comes back and it's down, it appears that the town manager, in regards to putting it up, should have made sure that the flag had both of them still up, correct? Right? So it appears the fault is not with a resident of the town. It appears the fault lies with information that is lacking to the residents of the town on who's responsible for it and so forth, and who maintains it. So I think you need to get that into writing on who maintains it, who puts the flags at half-mast when needs to be, etc., and so forth. And I thank you for doing what you did. You did a beautiful job by putting up that flag. Thank you.
And you can also, Joan, thank Karen Shepshelowitz, who did a lot of work getting those flags for us and presented them about a month ago.
Yes, I
meeting.
did.
Good.
And I know that it would be nice if all of you did the same thing too. Thank you.
She should be thanked, yes. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Okay, so can we go to a motion?
What is it? What's the motion for?
The motion is to direct the town manager to have a conversation with the state about purchasing the Rotary. We got into a flag program and some other things on the side, but that was the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, that concludes the regular agenda. A motion to retire to executive session of the Town Council at the end of the June 2nd, 2014 Town Council meeting, as in accordance with Rhode Island General Law 4246-4, to discuss investigative proceedings regarding allegations of misconduct, either civil or criminal, in accordance with Rhode Island General Law 4246-5A4, non-union personnel in accordance with 4246-5A1, collective bargaining regarding Rhode Island Council 94, Local 1179, AFSCME, AFL-CIO, and public service employees, Local 1033, in accordance with Rhode Island General Law 4246-5A2, and litigation, John Majika arbitration, in accordance with 4246-5A2. Someone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor, Ms. Segopian?
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Aye.
Mr. Mannix?
Aye.
Ms. Bonanno?
Aye.
Mr. Callahan? Aye. Have a good night, everyone.